Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Payara webinar. I can see people joining, so as usual, we'll give it a minute or two for everyone to join. Thank you very much for coming. This is the first webinar of 2024 that we're running, which is great. It's great to be back. Okay, yes, people still joining. So for those of you who are joining now, welcome, and feel free to say hello in the chat. You should be able to see the chat option in your view in Zoom panel. So feel free to chat where you're watching us from. Yes, we've got Christian from Germany, Jan from Sweden. And nice to see some familiar names again. Welcome back to those of you who attended our webinars in the past. Great, and as usual, we've got lots of people from all over the world. So it's good afternoon for me and Lukman and Edwin, because we're all based in that time zone or similar time zones, but I'm sure it's good morning and good evening for some of you. Great. So yeah, we still got people joining, but we don't want to delay the start for too long. So I think we'll begin in a minute. Hello from Ecuador, Argentina, Croatia. Yeah, great to see so many people. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, one of our Payara webinars, well, even again, very warm welcome. And I hope we will see you back for our future events as well. Okay, great. So just a couple of housekeeping points as usual. So again, for those of you who only just joined, we have the chat option and the Q&A option available for you to use throughout the whole webinar. So feel free to add your questions. If you have any questions to our panelists today, which I'm going to introduce in a moment, just type your questions at any point whenever they come up, in your head. Just don't wait until the end. Put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, whichever is easier. I will be monitoring throughout the conversation, and we will hopefully get to all of your questions at some point during the roundtable. So this is a very open discussion. We are very much expecting your input and your questions and your suggestions, and also feel free to answer other people's questions if you do know the answer. So that's very useful to have, other community members helping each other. So do use the chat option if you want to, and if you feel like it. So okay, so hopefully you're all here to listen to our two panelists, Edwin Dirks, the Jakarta EE expert and Java champion, and Lukman Saeed, our own Payara Jakarta EE expert and technical writer. So they will be talking today about Jakarta EE and powering mass productivity in enterprise Java development, and what that means. Exactly, you'll find out in a few minutes. We've got lots of interesting topics to cover around this theme. So I think without further ado, I will leave the room to Edwin and Lukman. And Edwin, if you want to start with introducing yourself to some of, maybe some of the audiences are not familiar, and then we'll get straight into the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, for sure. My name is Edwin Dirks. I'm based in the Netherlands. I've been in the software industry for almost 20 years. Started off as a Java developer and still continuing with that. But most of my career, I've been working with Java EE and enterprise Java technologies. Started speaking at conferences in 2017. And this way I also was a user and became an advocate for the beautiful technology Java EE and now Jakarta EE and related that comes with it. And my passion is sharing why and how to use these technologies in your most developer joy experience, and not just focusing on what is good or bad or a preference regarding framework, but it's about how you can effectively build enterprise level applications with Java in a way that makes you feel good and enjoyable. And that's what I hopefully also in this session can convince you about and tell you some of my experiences that I had regarding that topic.
Nice. Thank you very much, Edwin. You really are one of those vanguards in the space. So I think you can start for those of us who are relatively new. Maybe we can start from the very beginning. Can you give us a brief evolution of Jakarta EE? I mean, some people, if you read some older text, you will start from J2EE, all those days, all the way to Jakarta EE. Can you give a very high-level overview of the evolution all the way to what we have today?
Yeah, I'll try not to be too long about it because it's a long history. It's more than 25 years ago when this technology started. When the first versions of Java EE saw the light, I was still in elementary school, and I'm now 38. Can you imagine? So my career started off at J2EE4 in 2003-ish, and it was then still J2EE. But Java EE5 was the first version of Java EE, so that the brand got more mature and got more traction in the community. And that's how it evolved. And in 2017, the Jakarta Java EE was adopted from Oracle to the Eclipse Foundation because Oracle no longer didn't want to maintain and govern the framework. So it was open source under the Eclipse Foundation and rebranded as Jakarta EE. The nice sailboat logo that is now present on Jakarta EE was one of the first community initiatives to drive the Jakarta EE forward as a open source framework. And nowadays we have still Jakarta EE and still going strong. So we are looking at version 11 already since, like I said, I started with version 4 as J2EE 20 years ago. And there's so much happened in between, but still the vision behind this whole framework of having these specifications and implementations is still viable and going as we speak. There is no reason to let that vision slip or go away because it's very good idea and very productive. And that's what I want to talk about in this session.
Nice. So can you expand on a little, because probably for some of our audience, it may not be very clear when you talk about the specification and then the implementation. What could that be? And why is that one of the cornerstones of the longevity of the platform?
Yeah, so that's what you as a developer should really understand and enjoy. Because when I'm a developer, I write an application and I think, I have to write this business logic and I have to deliver it tomorrow. What if I need to build a whole HTML generating framework and a database connecting framework, and I need a messaging framework? If I need to invent all that myself, I will be busy with that instead of writing business logic. And also, if I have this product and I give it to someone else and that someone else says, I can do that better, I'm not going to use yours and I'm going to start over and do my own thing, that doesn't really make sense in a way of effectiveness. So with all the good intentions that developers have and companies like the Red Hat and all the drivers behind Java EE in the past and which are still going with Jakarta EE, writing down what works good regarding from a developer perspective. How do I access my database? How do I generate HTML page? How do I do messaging? That's written in a standard. That's a specification. And a specification brings you as a developer an API in Java that you can use to contact databases, write HTML pages and stuff like that, and do messaging, for example, among a lot of other tools that you have. There's documentation with it and there's a test kit with it, so that the specification that you're using is implemented by people that think they can do better than others. That's healthy competition, and these are the implementations. So if you are a developer, you want to use a database connection, you probably use the persistence API from Jakarta EE and Java EE in the past. You use the Java API to do whatever you need to do with your database, but you don't have to invent all this database connecting stuff and the driver and the maintenance regarded. It's all not yours to worry about. You can just use it because other people, and probably you as an open source user, have put effort in standardizing that and making it a product that you can take off the shelf in your application and use. And then you're going immediately with just a few lines of code connecting to a database instead of spending hours or days on writing something yourself that connects to a database. So it's a tool set of very applicable, needed stuff that we need as a developer to write enterprise Java applications, and then in such a way that you can just take it off the shelf and use it. That's essentially what this is all about.
Wow, nice. So pretty much these specifications you are talking about are sort of a codification of solutions that the industry comes together and then accepts as the qualified way of doing it. And that should abstract you, the developer, from needing to, okay, implement all of that.
Yeah, was that a question? Sorry?
Yeah, I'm saying that. So in effect, this specifications you are talking about simply abstracts me, the developer, from needing to know the detail of how to connect to a database, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So
great.
you can focus as a developer on the stuff that you care about, that is writing business logic, and all the plumbing has been done already for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Nice, nice. What would be some of the productivity features that you, at a personal level, you really fancy about the platform that has helped you to live this long? As you are saying, it started when you were in elementary school, and it's still nearly the de facto standard de facto standard actually in the market. What would be some of the productivity features that has given it this longevity?
Yeah, because we still need them. We still, in all honesty, a few have fallen off the wagon with the evolution of Jakarta EE to 9 to 10. There is just stuff that we don't need anymore. So that is breaking compatibility with past versions, which in the past was very important to keep backwards compatible, like in for years. But that's not necessary anymore. We don't need stuff anymore that we don't need anyway anymore. So the stuff that we still need, apparently that is stuff that we already use 25 years, like generating HTML pages and doing messaging and stuff like that. But the longevity is because it's stable and still the way how we build software. As long as that keeps this way, the platform will not, Jakarta EE as a platform and a product will not change very much. But we see it adapting to requirements in modern software development from developers. It's not that somebody in a multi-billion-dollar company now says, "Oh, I need this." That was before Jakarta EE under the JCP. But then now it's open sourced. Community input is key. You as an end user are also responsible and what's the best word? Available. Able, thank you, to drive the product that you're actually using. So you collaborate with other developers, but also sometimes build multi-billion-dollar companies on the same technology to build the best products in the end for doing software development. And the most beautiful part of this is that when you are a user on a certain project for Jakarta EE, for example, on a specification or an implementation, and your vote counts as much as someone that has multi-billions of dollars to spend. It's not about money. It's not about power. It's about being on an equal ground with the governance from the Eclipse Foundation in this case, to make sure that whatever we do on the platform is being governed in such a way that it makes sense and nobody takes advantage of it. And that's the modern and also very it helps the platform longevity a lot to be open sourced, in my opinion.
Okay. So the move from Java EE at Oracle to Eclipse Foundation has really given that future overview, that open access for all of us to contribute to the platform. Okay, great, great. Now, I also know that for especially younger developers, the J2EE era still lingers on, the Java EE era still lingers on, and now we have Jakarta EE. Are there examples of companies that are using Jakarta EE in the real world that we can point to, or we know about, or you know about? Obviously, you've been in the space for very long, that are using Jakarta EE, because sometimes it sounds a little abstract, especially for younger developers. When we talk about Jakarta EE, most of them know probably Spring and some other new frameworks. But then when you talk about Jakarta EE, it's not very clear. Okay, yeah, but if we could, you know of any companies that are using Jakarta EE to elaborate on?
Yeah, that in my experience, a lot of banks in industry are using Jakarta EE technology directly. Historically seen often because of the stability of the platform, that they develop it once and then evolve over the years, but not really have to change anything because of the backwards compatibility. That's yeah, what I actually have experienced, the most applicable place where you can find Jakarta EE or Java EE technology. But in the more flexible, hype, smaller companies, at least here in the Netherlands, Spring is king. And in these kind of companies, Jakarta EE is not directly used often.
Okay. So because samples also can be had from, for instance, the list of Payara customers, there are quite a large number of companies there ranging from banks to whatever, and I also know a few other companies, private companies that are doing Jakarta EE. So like you pretty much said, it's a very known platform, and that powers a lot of the stuff that we know. And I know one of your passion is about the ease of development of the platform. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. Yeah, and to also go on about the last question, I don't really see a case why you should not really use Jakarta EE in a smaller company. That's nonsense. So for me, that doesn't work. If for some reason the Jakarta EE technology doesn't work in a company, that I can't really think of anything, but that would be the reason not to choose it. But otherwise, as a developer, why shouldn't you? And so it's not that Jakarta is only for big companies or whatever that means. No, it's a tool that you can use to start building enterprise applications, just as you can with competitors or similar frameworks like Jakarta EE. But that's the thing. You don't use necessarily the whole platform. You choose which tools to take from the Jakarta EE toolset to use in your application, and you can choose a runtime, an implementation of Jakarta EE that fits your requirements. So if you don't need the whole platform, a big application server of 700 megabytes, if that's a problem for you, for example, then you can maybe use the web profile based one, or even a core profile based one, or someone like Tomcat that only has 2 specifications in it. So you can really determine what you need from Jakarta, and the implementation and the setup of your software stack is not set in stone. You can really match and tweak how your application is going to run. And again, that is the beauty of having these specifications decoupled from the implementation. You can build applications that when you not even have thought about where to host it, you shouldn't even have to, essentially.
Wow, amazing. So essentially, the decoupling of the specification from the implementation gives this flexibility of being able to just nitpick whichever part of the platform solves your problem, and then you just pick and use that part.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Because sometimes it's a little bit abstract when you hear this, okay, Jakarta EE is flexible, but like you are explaining, that decoupling means that each specification is isolated, it's sort of on its own, and then you can simply pick specifications that you need to solve your particular business case.
Exactly.
And then pick up whatever runtime you want. Okay.
Yeah, and to go into that, Jakarta EE, yes, is a little bit of a puzzle. You have to understand how everything clicks together. Because a specification is, for you as a Java developer, a set of Java interfaces, nothing more. The implementation of a specification is a Java framework of Java classes that you can or cannot run on itself. It's just an implementation of Java classes that say or prove that what the interface says it does, it works. But to put that into reality, it needs a runtime, an application server, so the specification and the implementation are put into the application server. And the application server is a collection of specifications that adhere to a certain Jakarta EE profile, the platform profile or the web profile, the core profile, and this makes up your runtime from a Jakarta EE perspective. So there is where the components click together, but they are also maintainable and you can develop them separately from the whole platform. Yeah, I understand sometimes from developers it's a big puzzle, but when you only focus on I have Jakarta EE, the platform I built, I have a runtime, what you don't need and what you don't use is not directly in your way. You might say, oh, this application server is too large in size. I need the slimmed down version. That's even possible. Like you have the Payara enterprise server and you have the Payara micro. The micro and Payara server are both fully Jakarta EE compliant. But with Payara micro, all your monitoring stuff is stripped out. So when you put it in a container, a Docker container, where you're not going to use the management toolings anyhow, why should you have it there? And that's beautiful from Payara. But also other products, but Payara is one of the, it has a lot of deployment models in that regard. You can choose which implementation of Jakarta EE fits. Yeah, that mix and match, but I can talk and I can talk, but as a developer, you really have to experience that. It's when you get the idea, it will come to you. That's what I can at least say.
Nice. Just circling back a little, I think you used the profiles a little, the platform, and then the web, and then can you for the benefit of our audience who are not very familiar with it, when you say a profile, a Jakarta EE profile, what is it? Is it a collection of specific parts of the specification? Can you expand on that for the sake of our audience who are not very much aware of that?
Yeah, so there are also nice pictures about that, but I will explain like this. The platform specification from Jakarta EE is every specification put together. That's the full Monty, to call it like that. But when you have the web profile, in the past, people thought, wait, when I have a web application, I don't need necessarily all the big enterprise integration stuff. So in the web profile is the full profile, but several specifications are left out. So you have a smaller profile of specifications to build your application with. When you choose web specification, web profile, it shouldn't be a problem because you make the conscious decision not to use a specification that you're not going to use from the platform. So the web profile will be more applicable for you. And when you, for example, use a core profile, only use the REST APIs and the real small web components, then you don't need database connections, and so that gives you an even smaller specification set to work with. But that means from the implementation side, there is an implementation that's much smaller and lightweighter than the whole application server that implements Jakarta EE platform. So you have to figure out which profile, which set of collection of Jakarta EE specifications is applicable for you, and then look at the runtimes that implement these, and then you have to at least a first step in an optimized for you choose and match situation where you can build and run your application with.
Well, okay. So I pick the profile based on my business case. If I'm an independent developer developing some cool idea I have, I could just go with, say, the core profile or the web profile without needing to pull in the other specifications I don't really need.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Great.
true. And even if you don't use them, they're not in your way. Okay, that's the difference with a component-based framework like Spring. And some people think, oh, I do Spring and not Jakarta EE. No, that's not true. Spring has some components because Spring is a component-based framework that implement under the hood Jakarta EE specifications. For example, Jakarta persistence. So how you use your database connections and what I've been talking about. That's inside Spring components. So when you have a component-based framework like Spring, you put together your components, but if you drag a component in that you don't use, it's literally in your way. You download it, you put it in your app, it creates megabytes of extra size in your application. It might conflict with others. So component-based framework is a different kind of development and maintenance than just Jakarta EE. But with the component-based framework like Spring, you can put everything in your app with every component that you select. It's just integrated and built in. That's the advantage that you have. You can literally put all the stuff in your Spring app that you want. With the Jakarta EE, you're limited to the specifications set.
Okay.
So if there is a new specification that you want to use that's not in the platform yet and not in the implementations yet, you cannot use it. Unless you find some way, but when you have, for example, Jakarta data in your Jakarta EE9 application server, it's not there. You cannot use it. So you have to wait until the newer version of Jakarta EE, like 11, where Jakarta data is supposed to be included. Then there you have Jakarta data as a specification that you can use on the application server that implements it. But if it's not there, then you cannot use Jakarta data. And with Spring, you can just say, oh, I want the data component and just drag it in. So there are ups and downs on using Jakarta and Spring in that regard, or similar frameworks.
Okay, so based on what you said, it implies that Jakarta EE essentially follows the model of the thin wall. So you have a very thin deployment artifact that you just drop in your runtime or your application server, and then you are done. So your specification is not bundled as part of the deployment artifact that you have, if I understand what you just explained correctly.
Yeah, when you do it properly, indeed, it shouldn't or must not. And I have a very nice example of that because my love for Java EE in the past, there was one moment in time that I was like, this is it, now I'm happy. And that is when I will just describe it. I think 2012, back more than 10 years ago, I had this JBoss Enterprise Application Server 5.1.2 version. It ran on Java 7. And I was one of the guys that has these pristine tuned to the application server applications that didn't contain dependencies. So we were really using Java EE back then on the application server and within this boundary I just talked about. But it was fine because we could build applications that did what it had to do. So we could just go with vanilla Java EE and it was fine. So I had this 5.1.2 application server that ran on Java 7. However, Java 8 came out. And Java 8 was hopping from Java 7 to 8 and from 6 to 7. A new Java version was something back then.
Yeah, pretty big.
So the architect I was working with was like, Edwin, Red Hat has released the JBoss AAP 5.2.0 application server version that supports Java 8. I was like, oh, of course, I'm going to upgrade Java 8. And however, he said, let's test first if it works because Java 7 to 8, scary, let's see what happens. So I was like, okay, you're right. I'm going to try that. So I sat down, I took my app, I installed Java 8, I installed this 5.2.0 application server. I started my app on the server and I was like, okay, come on. I watched the error log. I was like, okay, flood me. tell me whatever is wrong with my application, and just I will go bug hunting and I will do whatever it takes, but just show me what is wrong with my app. But there was nothing. My
Okay.
application log didn't show any errors. I had just migrated from Java 7 JBoss 5.1.2 to 5.2.0 on Java 8, and my app ran fine. Test, yeah, it soon went to production. So doing your application properly without the dependencies in that, so that it only contains your code. There's a vision behind Java EE and Jakarta EE still. Then your whole responsibility of running is inside the application server. And because Red Hat in that case had done its homework properly and making an application server that ran properly with Java 8, I could migrate my app and be like, okay, I'm done.
Okay.
So that's when my love for Java EE was really taking off.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
the most beautiful example I can give of properly doing Java EE and Jakarta EE and reaping the benefits as a developer.
Nice. Now, tying in this issue of theme wars, maybe we can digress a little for you to talk about Jakarta EE suitability for microservices, for instance, because you might have, especially again, new users to the platform who would probably have heard that Jakarta EE may not be suitable for instance, microservices because of X, Y, Z. Can you expand? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, I've heard this rhetoric many times. I have my own opinion on it, but also I can explain why this shouldn't be an issue. Because conceptually, microservices dictates, oh, it's a single application, does one thing right, but it doesn't really say about you cannot implement it with a certain framework or not. So you can essentially build a microservice with a full Jakarta EE platform specification implementation application server thingy. From the outside, nothing shows this is not microservice because of the implementation is Jakarta EE. It's how your application is being runs, how it is being handled, how you can deploy it, how it not falls over when another service is falling over. That is what determines your service as a microservice or not the implementation. So I can give you a service and say, oh, there's an API and it responds, and you say, okay, cool. And I say, okay, I'm going to switch the implementation to whatever, it doesn't even matter. And I say, oh, you try it. And you say, oh, it's the same result. Yeah, I switched the implementation for this microservice, but it still functions the same way. So it's about how your service runs and acts and feels and not about the implementation. So essentially you can build microservices with plain Jakarta EE. However, the truth is Jakarta EE is not really suitable for cloud environments because the cloud needs some information from an application server to make sure your application runs fine or not. And that is where microprofile comes in. So in the past, you had Java EE and it went Jakarta EE, but there was no real microservices support for putting Jakarta EE properly in cloud native environments because Jakarta EE didn't have a specification for health checks and metrics and all the management stuff for that cloud wants to know from a running application. Spring, on the other hand, had taken off for years before that because it just created a health check component, put it in your app or in the core, and Spring has health checks. So for Spring, it wasn't really an issue, but for the Java EE and Jakarta EE community and also the government around it, governance around it, they were like, do we need a specification for exposing health endpoints, or do we put it in the products, but then we have different products like Payara, Red Hat, Oracle, all having their own implementation of health checks. That's not what we want. So some people started the microprofile initiative to create specifications in the same way Jakarta EE does, but for cloud native requirements. So config was the first microprofile specification that saw the light in microprofile 1.0 because people had a dire need for injecting properties in Jakarta EE applications. So you could complement your Jakarta EE platform with microprofile And a lot of Jakarta EE implementations are currently still built with both support for Jakarta EE and microprofile. And microprofile is even based on certain Jakarta EE specifications, so they built on top of that, just like Spring does. But you can now, with application servers that almost all have Jakarta EE and microprofile implemented, build microservices with just this single implementation. What you have to do is put in your POM file, your project management file for Maven, but also for Gradle, the same stuff goes. You put in the Jakarta EE and microprofile dependency, and then that's all you need for your project to both do business logic with all the Jakarta EE specifications and the cloud management stuff with the microprofile specifications. It doesn't conflict, it complements each other. So there are several discussions regarding how do we need to integrate microprofile into Jakarta EE so they stay separate. Is there some point in time that they are not compatible anymore? I don't know what's going to happen in the end, but for now, the fact that they are complementary means that with the Jakarta EE application servers, you can build microservices. It just, for me, no discussion. If it functionally works as a microservice, what matters that it's Jakarta EE under the hood? For me, it doesn't really make sense. So yeah, go ahead and build microservices with Jakarta EE.
Nice. So microprofile now makes Jakarta EE complete for cloud native deployments and microservices.
Yes.
That's great, because in the past there was so much misunderstanding of what is this and that. And I'm also happy you touched on microprofile, because it's something that new users to the platform might wonder. And like you rightly did, you can't talk about Jakarta EE without microprofile. You really can't talk about Jakarta EE much without having to touch on. So I'm glad you touched on microprofile, because it's something that also needs to be explained to new users, how it fits into the overall productivity of the Jakarta EE platform. Nice. Now, circling back to Jakarta EE, can we talk a little bit about the community and the ecosystem? I think it's very huge. And I think most of the time, Jakarta EE is very underrated until there is an upheaval, like the migration from the namespace migration to Jakarta from JavaX, and nearly every framework in the entire ecosystem was impacted. Can you expand a little on the ecosystem, community and the ecosystem of Jakarta EE?
Yeah. So again, I want to start off with Jakarta EE is about the specifications and the program model that you get as a developer, but that's not the whole truth of it. A lot of stuff happens for you or because of you as a developer under the hood, or even besides Jakarta EE, but still it's from that enterprise application programming model. It's connected. So that means these specifications are not only used in Jakarta EE application servers. There is tooling around that implements these specifications as the interfaces directly or an implementation. And also your IDE counts on syntax checking Java EE or JavaX or Jakarta EE import statements, for example. So the fact that they have standardized things that are being used in the community means that if the standard changes, you have to update the whole community. And apparently, Jakarta EE is everywhere. The standardized bodies, the way we have agreed upon how we do things is not only in an application server, but also present in tooling, IDEs, frameworks, implementations, you name it. Everything was impacted. And that's both beautiful, but also, a bummer when it happens, but I hope it doesn't happen like that anymore with the Jakarta EE9 switch. But Spring adopted this change specifically in Spring 6. They didn't do it just as a component release, minor release or whatever. It was part of the Spring 6 release version.
Okay.
Because it had such an impact.
Nice. Also, again, for our audience, there may be some that probably know more about Spring than Jakarta EE. Can you briefly touch on, since they are all in the same ecosystem, how Jakarta EE relates to Spring?
Yeah.
I know Spring is somehow built on part of Jakarta EE. Can you elaborate that, how Jakarta EE relates to Spring?
Yeah. Yeah, so I also kind of touched upon that, but I will now explain more in detail. So yeah, when you have the Jakarta EE specifications, you as a developer program with literally against the interfaces that these specifications provide you. That is your programming model. The application servers that we know are implementations of these specifications. So they are beneath your developers don't touch them, they don't touch the programming model. So when you have Spring, they say, oh, we use these Jakarta EE interfaces, but we build something on top of that. So Spring has its own programming model. But under the hood, the program model somehow connects to the specification from Jakarta EE that has an implementation that does stuff under the hood of the Spring framework. So that's what I wanted to make clear. You can build on top of Jakarta or make something compatible with Jakarta and then use the interface as a program model. But you can even mix and match, but you can do both. So Jakarta EE doesn't limit you to one or the other. It's not that you can rephrase what I want to say. Spring's program model is not standardized and being used by other frameworks that built on Spring, because Spring is not a standardized body. It's a standard on itself, but not to be adopted by other frameworks that build on Spring. That makes sense. But Jakarta EE provides standards to just to make sure people do the same stuff, even if they build other stuff on top of it. That is someone's choice. If that works, fine. Why would you not allow that? Or even you cannot even counter that. But yeah, the Jakarta EE is everyone's friend in that regard, even if you directly or indirectly use it.
So Spring essentially is sitting on top of Jakarta EE with a separate programming model, but still sort of delegating things to Jakarta EE in one way or the other, Jakarta EE specifications in one way or the other. Okay. Nice.
Another beautiful thing about the Spring I want to mention, it's about people, how they perceive what is good and bad with Jakarta EE or Spring. So the vision behind Jakarta EE is you make thin vars, dependencies in the implementations. That is ideally how you and why you should use Jakarta EE. However, you can still put dependencies in your application. So you don't create a thin var that contains no dependencies. You create a fat var with dependencies in your next to your own code. For Spring, this is perfectly fine because it's designed like that. But for Jakarta EE, you can create conflicts in your application server or on your class path or whatever. So it's less ideal for Jakarta EE to create a fat web archive, a var. However, you can still do that. If it works for you as a developer, if you say, I'm fine with that, nobody stops you. If you have, so it's also about preference. Nobody stops you from not doing it. And then there's the Uber jar. Spring Boot came out. They say, okay, we have our business logic that you programmed. We have the Spring components, all the Java code. And we have the runtime, Tomcat or whatever underneath. And we put it all in one application, a jar, the Uber jar. And that you can run with Java -jar and then just that thing. Run it like a Java SE application. You can do that. For Spring Boot, this was huge. The whole community like, oh, one dependency, one artifact, one thing to ship. That is a few hundred megabytes in size. Shouldn't really matter if it doesn't matter for you. Fine, if it works for you, fine. And essentially putting everything from your program model and your specifications and your implementation and your application server in one thing that goes completely against the vision behind Jakarta EE. But still, why shouldn't you? And that's the beauty about Payara. They provide from Payara Micro a way to create an Uber jar from your application code and your Payara application so that you put it in one Uber jar. So you don't have a separate web archive and Payara Micro anymore. It's just one thing.
One Uber jar. Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful that Payara does that, even though it goes against the vision of Jakarta EE. But still, as a developer, you program with the same specifications, same programmer model. How you ship it, it's up to you, buddy. Why
Okay.
should you prevent people from building Uber jars if it doesn't hit the vision against behind Jakarta EE? That still stands. The specifications, the standardized bodies with the Java interfaces, as long as that's there, fine. Jakarta EE is fine. I love how all these deployment models spring up. With Quarkus even, from Red Hat, they have this kind of component-based Jakarta EE model thing, because you can choose which components you want to include in your Quarkus application, and then you still have your application separated from your runtime, which is Quarkus, but then tune it to whatever you need. I like this innovation, and that's again what I wanted to circle back to. Jakarta EE is not about only the programming model and the interfaces. It's also about what happens underneath, under the hood. Security, adoption of Java versions, performance, resource management. There's so much innovation in the runtimes, in the application service in the past several years, so that people look at, oh, Jakarta EE has been standing still for 5 years. Jakarta EE 8, 9, and then 10 took 5 years to get new features for developers in the programming model. But Jakarta EE gained traction because the innovation happened in the community, in the ecosystem, in the implementations. And now we have Jakarta EE 10 with new features in all in the programming model. Jakarta EE 11 will go further with that, and 12 also. So it will become a better programming model for developers again. But in the background, so much has happened and so much innovation is there that's also applicable and important for you as a developer. And we should not forget that.
Nice. Now, tying in, you just mentioned 11. I'm just wondering, as it's coming out sometime this year, what are your favorite features of 11? What do you expect? What are your thoughts about 11, Jakarta EE 11?
Yeah, I hope it comes to fruition in the final version like this. But adding Jakarta data to this specification, to this version, is a new specification driven by input from community. We want this. I've seen so many discussions in the past years. Oh, we have Jakarta persistence. Why do we need Jakarta data? It looks like Spring. Yeah, but we want that. And we also have Jakarta NoSQL. It's also somewhere in between. But in the end, it's a community. It's also community input. What happens in Jakarta E11? Because if the community doesn't want it, or is not going to use it, why put it in, or why leave it out? So, but this is adding this is, I think, huge for the evolution of Jakarta EE, since we now can actually experience what it is to put new big stuff in, and not just only tweak the existing stuff. So this is huge. Second thing that's huge is upping the compatibility level of Java to 17. Backwards compatibility was a very strong component of Jakarta EE in the past. Java E8 was the base for years, and there were many discussions about, oh, we need to have Java EE base 8, Java EE8 as the compatible base for future application servers, because we want old applications to land on new application servers. But that is maybe outdated vision. So I'm glad to see that we are now, for newer version of Jakarta EE, upping the Java SE version, so that we are positively forcing people to upgrade their application server and not leave it in the basement, because the compatibility level is not changing. So in the end, really think we're doing everyone a favor by positively forcing, if that's a thing, to upgrade the Java SE, but also Jakarta EE versions, and then combined, because innovation is also in Java SE. So there is, it's so intertwined that I'm glad to see that the whole stack is being upgraded now, and not just only the Jakarta EE versions.
Nice. So essentially, they're basing on 11, and I think there was even initially was supposed to be 21, but I think it's going to be on 11. Is going to force, like you said, positive innovation. They are going to be positively pushed to upgrade the entire ecosystem and massive legacy applications to better take advantage of new releases in the Java ecosystem, and also the newer and fancier stuff that are coming. Great. So I'm also looking forward to 11, actually. Yeah, I'm also looking forward to 11. Yeah, I think there's one question here. Maybe we can take a look at it. Bob Joe is asking, what are some Jakarta EE frameworks that you prefer over more popular frameworks now? I'm not so sure what he means by Jakarta EE frameworks, but I don't know if you have any idea about that.
Yeah, I would interpret it as Jakarta EE versus Spring versus Quarkus versus Tom EE, all the products that are around. Yeah, I really use the programming model of Jakarta EE. But that doesn't mean I have to use a traditional application server. I can also use Quarkus, because Quarkus also uses the programmer model from Jakarta EE. But Quarkus also has a Spring programming model. So you can do the same stuff on Quarkus, but if you prefer the Spring programming model, they just put it in for you. It's just how you push the buttons. It's so beautiful that implementation and programming model are just separated and complement each other. But for me, I like the Jakarta EE programming model. But yeah, if I go to a project and they say, okay, we have Quarkus because we think it's a good product, but we also like the Spring programming model, I'm like, okay, fine, then I write it like that. I'm more concerned with why we do stuff instead of how. So if how works for us with a certain tech stack that is made available by products in the community and vendors behind it like that, I'm all for it.
Nice. Yeah. So essentially, your programming model is one of the driving factors for picking the framework. And Jakarta EE, like you explained earlier, has that flexibility to support nearly all the models you can think about, from thin walls to fat jars. It's supported all over.
Yep, you can write and package anything you prefer in a way you prefer. You just have to tell your application what to do by using the specifications, the programming model. That's part of the equation, and not the only focus that you should have.
Nice. Okay, since we are nearing the top of the hour, I think I would ask one or two last questions. For someone new to Jakarta EE, what advice would you give them to help them get started and make the most of the platform as you are advocating for massive productivity and maximum productivity?
Yeah, so there is a start.jakarta.ee website where you can download a skeleton or expanded version of a project for Jakarta EE. So I would definitely go there, because this will set you up with a Maven project that you can import in your IDE, and then you can start programming already. You just have to make sure that your IDE has configured the right Java version, of course, but essentially that's the skeleton that's being provided for you. That is already production ready if you want it. So there's no need to build a POC first, a proof of concept, and then do production stuff. No, you can just start with the tools that are being provided by you from the starter already. And from there, you can find the resources also that describe specifications and where to find the GitHub repos where the specifications are stored, who is driving these, so that you can contact people and ask questions. Please do, because we live from community input, so don't be afraid. But the starter is your point to go nowadays. And yeah, it's very similar to the Spring starter that also provides you the same possibility.
And for anybody looking to keep a tab on the platform, or even contribute to the platform, where would you suggest they start? Is it a mailing list? Where would you suggest people that want to contribute to the platform start from?
Yeah, so via the Jakarta EE website, you can find all the specifications and where they are stored in GitHub. And in GitHub are the issues listed. And you can definitely look there if there are some documentation changes or very easy changes to fix. You can already start contributing there as a developer with code. But you can also, go to the Eclipse website, I think and there find where the mailing lists for the Jakarta EE projects are stored. So you can do both. You can be on the mailing list and ask, hey, where can I contribute? What can I do? I want to learn. Now, people will definitely help you out. But also the code is stored in GitHub, so you can have both sources to start contributing.
Okay.
And you can do
Nice.
it with your own investment if you have little time or much time, and yeah, just use whatever you want. It's no one says you have to spend 8 hours a day or whatever. That's not how it works. It's your passion that you want to put in with the investment that you want to do.
Okay. There is another quick question in here. Larian is asking, will there be an increase in Jakarta EE learning resources? He says Spring is readily available, but not so much for Jakarta EE.
Yeah, that is still the hard truth. But yeah, you are free to start collaborating on the documentation as well. Yeah, and we from the community know that Jakarta EE has there are gaps in the documentation that is sometimes desperately needed. But again, we need community input and people putting effort in that to solve these problems. So yeah, if you find a piece of documentation missing, yeah, please write it yourself. Then yeah, you not only doing yourself a favor, but also the whole community.
Yeah, I think to add to that, the Jakarta EE tutorials have been rewritten recently from the ground up by Kito Man. I think Eclipse contracted him to rewrite it. So you can start from the Jakarta EE tutorials. It covers the entire platform end to end, and it gives you an overview of all the specifications like Edwin has expatiated here, all the specifications with example code and everything, all on GitHub that you can use. So you can start from there as well. There's another question from Caspar Edwin. He says, how to choose the right Jakarta EE runtime from the Jakarta EE starter page?
Yeah, a good question. I like that. So if you're just focusing on the programming model, there is no real implementation that you should go to because they're all the same in that regard. Because if they're not compatible, they're not certified, and they're not, yeah, you cannot choose them from that list. But one or the other might be more applicable to you regarding how it's built, structured internally. It's a separate product on itself. So you can have to look into the details of certain implementations to determine which one favors you. But next to the programming model, there are some vendor-specific features in the application server runtimes, like Payara provides the feature to create URLs that other implementations might not have. If you are, I want to program with the Jakarta EE program model, but also create URLs, other runtimes that don't provide this feature are off your list. So you have to find out which requirements you have versus which application service you think you want to use, and then make a decision.
Nice. Okay, so thanks. And are there any licenses very permissible or they differ? I think the entire Jakarta EE platform is now the Eclipse Foundation. I think Caspar is asking a follow-up question, says, are there any licenses? Are their licenses very permissible or do they differ by runtime?
Yeah, the runtimes also have to follow the license requirements from the specifications from the Eclipse, of course. So they cannot do something else entirely, suddenly. But they have their own commercial licenses, of course, as a product. So I hope I understand the question right and the answer is right. But yeah, there are several. It's complicated sometimes. might have to dive deeper into that.
I think I can expand on that also. I may have an idea. Caspar, the idea of the runtimes give you, like Edwin said, something to run your coded application against the specification on. But of course, when you ship to production, for instance, you would need support. When you have production issues and all of those, you will need production support. And that is where you are free to buy support from the runtime providers, because even though they provide all this runtime and everything, there will always be issues in production. Production always has, as I call them, plot twists that they will always throw at you. So that is where you can approach the vendors like Payara. We have Payara Enterprise, there where you can approach them to buy the commercial offerings they have, so that you have the bulleted end-to-end piece in production deployments.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, Edwin, we are on the top of the hour. How can anybody in the audience? Yes, it doesn't feel like it's 1 hour already. Anybody from the audience, if they want to connect with you, how do they connect with you on LinkedIn, Twitter? How do they get in touch with you? And then I hand over to Dominica on the screen now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lukman. Thanks, Edwin. That was a really good discussion, and thank you to the audience for asking questions and just adding more insight and input, and also really good. I think we've touched on really good topics around Jakarta and how much it needs help still from the community and how much involvement it still needs. And this is something that is very close to what we do at Payara to encourage community involvement. It's all open source, so we do need your help as well. And Jakarta EE does provide a lot of resources. I've linked to a couple of pages while Lukman and Edwin were answering your questions, so do check those out. And yes, please do contribute to Jakarta EE as well. It's there really for all of us to work on. And obviously there's a lot of work that Java champions and people like Edwin and others put into it, but it's anyone really who is willing to contribute. We welcome the contributions. And there are some resources already available as books as well, because I know a couple of you, a couple of audience members were asking about that. So there are some publications, and I know there are more in the making, and I know that Jakarta EE and Eclipse Foundation are working very hard on expanding on that. So please bear with us and do contribute wherever you can. And yeah, just keep in mind that Jakarta EE is fairly new in comparison when you think about you know, how long Java EE was on and Spring as well. So it's, yeah, we're all in this together. So so let's make sure that these things are happening not sort of next to us, but with us together. So thank you again. Thank you very much for this discussion. For those of you who might have joined late, we are recording our webinar, so you can revisit it later, or if you want to go back to any of the questions, any of the topics that we've talked about, you can access the recording using the same link you used to join this session today. And also, I'm aware there are a couple of people here today that maybe haven't really used Payara, haven't really tried Payara yet. So if you would like to give it a go, you can download Payara server for free from our website, payara.fish. So you just go to our website and try free. At the top, you can try Payara Server Enterprise, Payara Platform, Payara Server, Payara Micro. You can also, at any point in time, download Payara Community. We've only just released a new version, first release of this year yesterday, so it's fresh and ready for you to download and give it a go. And then we also have Payara Cloud 15 days trial for those of you who want to look into more of a cloud environment and use a little bit different technology than maybe what we talked about today. So all of these are available for free on our website, payara.fish. So do head over there if you haven't tried it already. So again, thank you very much for our speakers. We are 4 past the hour now, so I won't be taking any more of your time. And thank you, Edwin, for joining us. I hope we will see you again in one of our future events. And Lukman, thank you again for hosting this discussion. And if any of you have any further questions, please feel free to email us at info@pyra.fish or just subscribe to the blog and comment on blog posts, or just get us on social media, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you choose. Thank you very much again. Good afternoon, well, good night, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.